Biden slumps, Buttigieg soars 6 takeaways from benchmark Iowa poll. Just hours before presidential candidates will pitch themselves to Iowa Democratic activists in the first-in-the-nation caucus state, a new poll of likely caucus goers is rattling the race and hinting that a formidable front-runner is not as invincible as he might appear. Conducted by veteran pollster Ann Seltzer for the Des Moines Register and CNN, found former Vice President Joe Biden leading the Democratic field with 24% of the vote. The race for second place is a statistical tie between senior Bernie Sanders Sr. Kamala Harris 8 months before voters head to their caucus sites, though, the poll shows movement within a Democratic primary that is still wide open. Here are 6 takeaways from the Iowa poll. Biden's support is shaky. In December, months before he even entered the race, nearly a third of Iowa voters said they backed Biden. Today, about Biden's declining support came even before this week's controversy over his flip-flop on, which came after Seltzer began fielding her poll. In December, 82% of Iowa Democratic voters said they saw Biden favorably. This month, and Biden's backers are less enthusiastic about their chosen candidate than supporters of other candidates. Just 29. Sanders has a ceiling. 3 years ago, Sanders came within a handful of votes of achieving a stunning upset over front-running former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Today, almost, but Sanders also has one of the highest unfavorable numbers among Democratic candidates. A quarter of states. The dichotomy between Sanders' high name recognition and his relatively low poll numbers suggest Sanders fans from 2016 are looking elsewhere this year and that the 77-year-old self-avowed Democratic socialist has a ceiling through which he cannot break. As Warren, Buttigieg, Harris, and the others introduce themselves to voters and earn more support, they are likely to pull from a population that backed Sanders over Clinton in 2016. The high unfavorable ratings that Sanders and Biden suffer aren't the worst in the field. More than 4 in 10, Warren is on a growth trajectory. Seltzer is considered one of the most skilled pollsters when it comes to surveying Iowa's electorate. What makes her a special, and, though it is 8 months before the caucuses, Warren is the candidate on the move. She has an equal number of Democratic voters, 61%, say they are actively considering or backing Warren and Biden, the highest rates in the field. That's 5 points. Warren has been more aggressive in laying out detailed policy proposals than any other candidate. She has hired more. In terms of sheer growth, no one has improved more than Buttigieg, who wasn't even included in the December survey. Buttigieg scored the Beto bust. No one is in a deeper slump than former Republican Beto O'Rourke. In this month's poll, only 2% of Iowa Democrats say Beto is their first choice, an 80% drop. Just 4%. The number of Iowa Democrats who say they view him unfavorably stands at 21%, almost double the number who said they saw him unfavorably back in December, while his favorable rating 54% is up only a single point. O'Rourke has held Senators Cory Booker D. The best news for Booker: he's the second-choice candidate for 6% of Iowa Democrats, a level of support that puts him in the conversation. A tough field to poll. What's harder than keeping an Iowa voter on the phone while a pollster reads a list of all 24 candidates running for the Democratic primary nomination? How about accounting? The Iowa Democratic Party for the first time plans to hold what they are calling virtual caucuses, events in which voters who can't attend their polling places in person on February 3rd can still make their preferences known. Party rules say those who participate in virtual caucuses will be given the power to decide 10% of the delegates allocated during the caucuses, regardless of how many people show up in person or by phone. About 28, that has forced Seltzer to ask Iowa Democrats not just who they plan to support, but how they plan to participate and to weight support accordingly. Those Biden's support is higher among those who plan to caucus virtually, 33%, than those who plan to caucus in person, 23%. Buttigieg and Sanders, the new virtual caucus, meant to allow more voters to participate in the process, is likely to expand the universe of those who get to make their voices heard, and it's also going to make the process of measuring those voters all the more difficult. Iowa poll has clout. The Iowa poll will be the lead story in tomorrow's Des Moines Register. It is already played. Seltzer's poll will be the talk of the afternoon, so many candidates are speaking that the state party will kick off the event at 2 p.m. Central Time.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.